Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Seva and Rewatch for inviting me to come share my thoughts here. Just some context to the discussion today, right? So I have spent the last 5 years, fortunately, working with the government of India when they got their AI mandate, and the idea here is to share some learnings over the year in terms of, how through policy and innovation initiatives we've been able to sort of catalyze some change in the Indian AI landscape. With that said, I think it becomes a little. Sorry, next slide. It becomes important to understand the context in which we're having this conversation, which is, of course, the Himalayan region and its unique characteristics, right? And of course, this audience knows it better, that in terms of just its impact in global scale, this region is, supporting over 1.9 billion people and is spread across 8 countries. And it's one of these unique characteristics of this region that also make it most amenable for being an innovation testbed for AI solutions. The Himalayan region also has a strong advantage in terms of diversity. It is, housing over 50 languages, is got, various climatic zones, various topographies, various agroecological zones. And what that broadly also translates in the context of AI is a large diversity of data as well as a large quantum of data that is available if well curated and made available. Lastly, of course, and most importantly, is the idea of communities that is so central to the Himalayan region. When this region has sort of, through its indigenous communities, built a knowledge repository of adaptive practices, right from water management to herbal medicine, which again is indicative of the strong sense of adaptability that is also required for the adoption and development of technologies such as AI. And while, of course, therefore, with this unique characteristic that the Himalayan region anyway intrinsically encompasses, there is a very strong advantage for introducing AI and scaling it within this region. However, as we sort of move towards understanding where AI can come in, as my co-panelists also discussed, it is also important to broadly contextualize it to status quo for the region in terms of the existential crisis that it presently faces. I think this must have been discussed in detail in previous panels as well, where of course there's an understanding that climatic variability right now has led to a multiplicity of cascading effects, right? To begin with, in terms of just the natural disasters that have sort of increased in the past few years and their downstream effects on the health ecosystems, right, from increasing infectious disease burdens to the infrastructure gaps that exist in the ecosystem. And while, of course, there has been this compounding effect of risks that climatic variability has brought to the region, unfortunately, present-day response systems haven't been able to adapt as well to the risk mitigation that is required. And this is broadly seen in the limited availability of early warning systems or fragmented data that could help with real-time decision making, to limited capacity and infrastructure gaps, and most importantly, the limited involvement of the communities that are eventually impacted by these sort of changes, and therefore their limited trust in the tech-driven interventions that have been introduced. Now, of course, having understood this better in terms of what the sort of contemporary challenges that sort of face this region, it is also important to understand where AI can come in and where it cannot, right? And with that, sort of simply just to echo the thoughts of the previous 2 speakers, AI largely can be a great catalyst when it comes to synthesizing data, analyzing it, providing decision support recommendations, and to some extent even predictive support as well, right? And therefore what that broadly translates to for the Himalayan region is the idea that now there is space to sort of integrate various data resources to support real-time decision making for effective public service delivery. It means creating locally grounded solutions that can solve specific challenges of the region in terms of addressing its diversity. It supports the idea of helping prioritize resource allocation for resource-constrained environments. It looks at the ability of these systems to learn, relearn, unlearn, and therefore scale across various contexts, especially also in remote parts of the country. And lastly, what it helps most importantly is in helping in coordination, helping in bringing together various actors and helping systems speak to each other through interoperable mechanisms, right? And this broadly, of course, paints a strong picture, a strong potential for AI to come in and help solve practical challenges that the region faces. But as the co-panelists already have sort of spoken about, there is an understanding that the use of AI for the region needs to sort of be contextualized to what its requirements also are, right? Because this is a region where, say, where if diagnosis is delayed, diagnosis is denied. If there is a alert missed, it is a life lost. And therefore, the idea of innovation needs to be driven by the need to respond to local contexts. And as, of course, there have already been some demonstration of the potential of AI, I could quickly also run you through, one use case that could exemplify how AI could come in to solve local challenges, right? And therefore, when we talk about, say, early warning systems, there is a clear understanding here that, of course, with climatic variability, there has been an increase in rainfall in the region that, of course, is also sort of impeding the uptake of existing systems which are either archaic or quite generalized. And therefore, AI comes in from a perspective of providing bespoke recommendations because of the vast variety and granular data that it is trained on to provide alerts well before a disaster occurs, and therefore providing enough critical hours to citizens to evacuate and take respective responsive measures. To briefly also summarize, therefore, what is it that it takes to sort of enable AI transformation in the region, it is important to understand what are the key enablers for AI, right? Which is broadly infrastructure, data for the people, by the people, governance mechanisms to build in safeguards for the communities and preserve their rights, frugal innovation to support local context-driven innovation, and at the end, talent that is, of course, ensuring that the people are well equipped to deal with change and to adapt to the requirements that this, catalyzing sort of innovation would bring to be. I will just quickly, given the paucity of time, just summarize, what could be constructive pathways to help operationalize this sort of innovation within the region. And I think one of the most important ones is the idea of building data cooperatives, right? Because as I started, my presentation, I introduced the idea of how communities are the one that is going to essentially drive the change, drive the adoption of AI. And is one of also the most defining characteristics of this region. And the idea of data cooperatives is essentially to put these communities in the front and center of the AI revolution by equipping them with the requisite skill and talent to no more just be a data indicator, but be a data curator, data governor, be able to monetize data, therefore be more involved in the AI development life cycle, and eventually also lead its adoption. Of course, other recommendations are also illustrated on this slide, but broadly, just to conclude my thoughts, at the end of the day, the innovation that occurs in the Himalayan region is not just going to serve the communities here, but is also going to be a blueprint for the rest of the world in terms of how to build equitable technologies. And therefore, look forward to what's to come for the region. Thank you.